My dad used to tell me, well, both of my parents used to tell me, you have to work at a job that you hate for most of your life so that you can pay for the things that you want to do. And I'm like, that's incredibly ridiculous. Even when I was in high school, I remember having this conversation with my dad because I was like, why would you spend the majority of your time every single day, every single week for the rest of your life working at a job that you hate? That's like the majority of your time. Like, no wonder people die early because they get stuck working at these terrible jobs. Like, surely there has to be an option for a job that you like, right? And my dad's like, I don't know, I've never found one. I've hated all of the jobs that I've ever had, and I just accepted that that's how it was. And my mom's like, yeah, I've hated all of my jobs too. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're not giving me a lot of hope, but maybe I can find somebody who likes their job and then like ask them questions and see if maybe that's even a possibility.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. The Quiet Ones podcast is presented by NanoCraft CBD. NanoCraft was built on a simple mission: create exceptional CBD products that contribute to overall health. CBD is a natural, organic, and holistic option for a wide range of health concerns, including better sleep, reduced anxiety, and improved overall health. Recent studies have shown that CBD can alleviate feelings of anxiety and elevate your mood thanks to its ability to increase levels of the neurotransmitter of serotonin. Low levels of serotonin have been linked to depression. Traditional medications that are prescribed to patients with depression are designed to elevate levels of serotonin in order to give your mood a boost. And CBD oil has the same effect without the side effects of prescription antidepressants. I was diagnosed with major depression in 2014. I spent more than a year trying to find an antidepressant prescription medication that would work for me, with no success. I couldn't find one that I could tolerate because of the side effects. Along with depression, I have a general anxiety disorder, which leaves me feeling stressed, anxious, nervous, and scared a lot of the times. So a friend of mine suggested that I try CBD oil instead of prescription medication. I was a bit hesitant because I wasn't sure if it was drugs or not, or if it was even legal in the United States. So I did some research and found that CBD is derived from hemp or a marijuana plant, but it doesn't contain THC, which is the compound that gets a user high. So basically, it's really not drugs. I was also surprised to find that CBD is legal in almost all of the United States. So I got a bottle of the broad spectrum CBD oil from NanoCraft, and I took it every single day. I noticed results within 2 days. My anxiety was substantially lower. My mood shifted out of feeling numb and depressed to feeling more hopeful and happy. If you have depression, anxiety, or are just feeling down, because let's be honest, who hasn't felt off with everything that's going on in the past couple of years? You need to give NanoCraft CBD a try. Get 10% off your order when you order through the link at infjwoman.com/CBD. That's infjwoman.com/CBD. There's a link in the show notes. Hi there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. So this week has been really challenging for me. I'm struggling with a lot, but I've been thinking about how much to share. And it's easy to get trapped into thinking that you're the only one who struggles and that no one else will understand, even though I know that's not the case in my head. So I was just about to the point where I was ready to share, and then I got sick again. That seems to happen to me a lot these days. I have severe asthma, which makes it really hard for me to breathe in general. But then anytime that there's anything else that's obstructing my breathing, even just like a cold with congestion, it makes breathing feel like it's impossible. But I just want to let you know that you're not alone. If you're going through something and you feel like you're alone or you're struggling, please know that you're not alone. I'm right there with you. I'm here for you, even if I'm not as visible right now. As soon as I get over this recent sickness, which hopefully won't take too long because I've been struggling with it for at least a week now, I'll be back, I swear. So recently I did a series of videos discussing my book, the INFJ User Guide. And today on the podcast, I want to share with you one of my favorite videos in that series, which is on the chapter about how to find your purpose in life. People send me questions all of the time, and by far the question that I get asked the most is how to find your purpose in life. I know that it was something that I struggled with a lot, and it was really incredibly life-changing when I finally found my thing. So I hope that this video helps you figure out what your purpose is in life as well. You can access all of the videos in this series for free by going to infjwoman.com/bookvideos. Let's take a listen.
We are talking about chapter 11, which is how to find your purpose. Before we get started with that, I have a couple of really awesome things I wanted to tell you about. The first one is I have a free guide about how to find your purpose that is kind of like a workbook. It has some exercises. Some really great things that helped me nail down exactly what my purpose was. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link for the video when it's posted or in the description when the video is posted. But you can find it at infjwoman.com/findyourpurpose. And that'll give you, it's like a fillable PDF. So it gives you several different exercises that you can do that will help you figure out exactly what your purpose is. Another thing that I wanted to tell you about, I am doing a workshop next week that is called Attract Your Dream Job. It is a live workshop. We're going to talk about how to find the right job for you, which is kind of tied in with finding your purpose. Because if your job isn't meaningful to you, then it's not going to be the right job for you. We, as INFJs, we really need to do something that feels like it has meaning and it is our purpose. One of the most difficult things that I've done in my life is figure out what I wanted to do every single day. Figure out what kind of job that I wanted to have and where I wanted to work. And especially when you're younger, there are so many questions around that. When I was in high school, I didn't want to go to college not because I was like irresponsible or anything, but because they're like, okay, you have to pick a major. And I'm like, ugh, I don't know, like, which one do I pick? And there was all of this torment around like, what's the right thing to pick? And then when I graduated from college, it's like, okay, well, what do I want to do now? So there was years and years for me of trying to figure out exactly what the right thing was for me. I wish back then that I would have known what my personality type was, because I think that would have helped me a lot figure out, what I want to do. So anyway, if you're in that position, or maybe you are later on in your life and you're just in a job that you hate and you want to do something else, but you don't know what you want to do, this workshop will be great for you. You can find the link to it on my website, which is infjwoman.com. There is, it's like right at the top, there's a picture of a lady at a computer, and it says, learn how to attract your dream job now. So if you click on that link, then that will take you to the workshop. So, all right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Tonight we're talking about, what did I say it was? Chapter 11 of my book, which is the INFJ User Guide. If you don't have a copy of it yet, you can get a copy on Amazon. It's available on Kindle, and then it's available in the paperback version, which is what this is. So like I said, we're talking about chapter 11, which is how to find your purpose. INFJs are born with this really deep desire to do something really big and meaningful. We have this amazing way of dreaming really big dreams, but then we also know how to make a plan and go after those dreams. So we don't just want to dream, we want to bring those dreams into reality. And when we're young, a lot of us, the vast majority of us, get this idea in our head that there's like one thing that we're supposed to do with the rest of our life, right? It's like, what's my purpose? What's the reason that I'm here on this earth? I struggled with that for a long time. I struggled through high school, through college. After I got out of college, then I went back to college. And then every time I would go to work for a new company, I was still like questioning, is this the right job for me? Is this the right company for me? I don't like the people. I don't like the attitude of the company. I don't like the decisions that they make. There were so many times like that that's like, this isn't the right thing for me, but I don't know what the right thing is. I don't even know where to start. I was so lost in college that my mom made me take a career planning course. And basically what it was is 16 weeks of, here, try this assessment. Hey, read about this different thing. Here, do this assignment. And I finished it 16 weeks later, still confused. I think I had the idea in my head back then that I was going to be an engineer. And at the end of the course, there was like this big assessment that you had to take, and it said that I should either be an engineer or a trash services collector. And I was like, what? And I remember reading it to my mom, and my mom was like, well, you know, there needs to be people who like collect the trash. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, that's why I'm spending all this time in college? That's why I spent $70,000 on college? So it was so that I could be like a trash collector? Like, really? So obviously, I mean, I was like, this whole course was like wasted 16 weeks, right? I had another one of my struggles was I couldn't figure out what I wanted to major in college. So I changed my major like 6 or 7 times. I ended up graduating with a degree that I've never used. I have 3/4 of a degree that I didn't finish. So I have almost 3 college degrees. Never used, what I studied was mechanical engineering. I've never used that. I did study business, and I've used some of that. But a lot of the classes that you take in college don't really pertain to what you do day to day. So, I mean, I was just like feeling lost and hopeless. Like, I'm never going to figure out my purpose. There is no way. And most of the time, when I would talk to people about it, a lot of people didn't get it. You know, they were like, well, you should just pick something that's like where you can make a lot of money at it. And my mom kept encouraging me. My mom is a nurse, and so she kept telling me, you should go into nursing because then you can always find a job. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to like stick people with needles and like deal with blood and stuff. And like, no, that's not gonna work. I don't do that. I was just like, I could never be a nurse. I don't want to do anything like that. I don't care how much money that you make. That won't work for me. So I just struggled so much with it that it was like I just felt lost and hopeless for a long time. And then there was also this idea of, my dad used to tell me, well, both of my parents used to tell me, you have to work at a job that you hate for most of your life so that you can pay for the things that you want to do. And I'm like, that's incredibly ridiculous. Even when I was in high school, I remember having this conversation with my dad because I was like, why would you spend the majority of your time, every single day, every single week, for the rest of your life, working at a job that you hate? That's like the majority of your time. Like, no wonder people die early because they get stuck working at these terrible jobs. Like, surely there has to be an option for a job that you like, right? And my dad's like, I don't know, I've never found one. I've hated all of the jobs that I've ever had, and I just accepted that that's how it was. And my mom's like, yeah, I've hated all of my jobs too. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're not giving me a lot of hope, but maybe I can find somebody who likes their job and then like ask them questions and see if maybe that's even a possibility. But my parents also they didn't understand this need that I had of like having a bigger purpose. Like there has to be a higher calling almost. Like I want to help people somehow, but I just didn't know like what's the thing for me. And what I realized years later, I just realized this a couple of years ago, and I'm 35 now. When I was in high school and college and then early in my working years, I just had this idea of there has to be one thing that I'm supposed to do, right? It has to be my hope and my dream. It has to give me meaning, make my life worth living. It has to be some way that I can help people. It has to be something that I want to do every single day. And it needs to pay for my rather expensive way of living. It has to pay for my student loans. It has to give me some kind of status in this world, and it has to be like the whole reason that I'm born. And once you write all of that out and you look at it, it's like, wow, that's a lot to ask of a job, right? I mean, you wouldn't ask all of those things of one person, right? So why do we think that we just have this one job that's going to fulfill pretty much every single area of our lives? And who says that it has to be one thing? I heard this stat that somebody told me, I think somebody was on my podcast, told me that millennials will have 9 different careers in their lifetime. That's not jobs, that's careers. I think I'm probably up to like 5 or 6 different careers, and I'm only 35. So I believe it 100%. And like I said, I had 3 different majors in college. So there are potentially 3 different careers that I could have done right there. But I guess the biggest realization for me was you don't have to have one job in your lifetime. You don't have to have one career. You don't even have to have one purpose. I think that we get lied to is the problem. We are told something by our parents, not that they intentionally lie to us. It's just that they have this belief that they were told by their parents and they were told by their parents. And the thing is that it doesn't really get updated because our grandparents probably did have one career for their whole life. Some of them maybe even worked for one company. My grandpa worked for Cessna for 25 years. I don't know how many other jobs that he had. I don't think very many, but then he retired from Cessna and that was it. My dad has worked for several different companies, but he's worked in the same field. But my grandpa believed that you work for one place, right? You have one career. My dad believed that too, and so that's what he told me. And he never said or learned that, hey, that may not be the case for you. Things are changing. Business operates differently now. And even just over the last couple of years, the way that businesses have operated has changed immensely. People not wanting to work in the office, companies giving employees the option of working from home. I mean, that was never a thing that my grandpa had even thought about. And that was never anything that my dad thought about either. I didn't really think that it was possible, certainly not for the company that I worked for now. I didn't think it would be possible for me to do that now. And if it wasn't for COVID, then it wouldn't have happened. But COVID has changed so much. But these things that we get told by our parents that, you know, their parents told them, they don't get updated because it's a belief that you have that you've just always had, and you don't really put a whole lot of research into it, right? So when you think about your purpose, it's important to realize that you may not just have one purpose over the whole course of your life. There could be several different jobs that you can do. There could be several different careers that you have. And there could also be several different things that contribute to your purpose. Your job doesn't necessarily have to be your purpose. Maybe part of your purpose is volunteer work that you do. Maybe part of your purpose revolves around your family or the community that you live in. It doesn't have to be just one thing. And I think that when you think about it that way, it takes a lot of the pressure off of finding something that's perfect. Because when you think, okay, this job that I'm getting or that I'm doing right now, it doesn't have to be the thing for the rest of my life. It can just be the thing that I'm doing right now, right? It can be the thing that's going to get me to the next thing. That letting go of those expectations, it changes everything. You also need to ask yourself, instead of saying, what should I do? Because there's a lot of expectations around what should I do, right? What's the right thing to do? But when you let go of that should, then you open up the possibility to say, what can I do? What do I want to do? What sounds good right now? What feels good right now? It's easy to say that, though, right? Because a lot of us have expectations from our parents, maybe from our grandparents, probably expectations of ourselves as well, of what I should do. What's the responsible thing to do? What's the right thing to do? That was another trap that I fell into, too. I have 3 siblings, and I'm the responsible one. That's always been my label. That's always been my thing. I do the right thing. I do the thing that my parents want me to do. That's always been the way it's been. I was the good child who really didn't have that much of a rebellious stage. The way that I rebelled was I moved 1,000 miles away from my family. And they were shocked that I actually did it because they didn't think that I was going to do it. But I had a job and I had my own apartment, and I think I was like 25 years old. So it was time. But there was a lot of expectations around, you know, what should you do? What's the right thing to do? And I think that's what tripped me up a lot when I was in school, because I thought there was just one right answer. But when you let go of the should and you let go of thinking that there is a right answer, everything changes. We learn in school that there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer, right? And sometimes that's true. Obviously, when you go to the grocery store and you pay them with cash and they give you change back, there's a right and a wrong answer to how much change you should get back, right? There's a right and a wrong answer to that. But when you're talking about other things like what kind of job should you have, there isn't a right or a wrong answer. There are a lot of different things that you can do, and there's a lot of different ways now to accomplish things than what there used to be. So letting go of those expectations, questioning the beliefs that you've always had is a big first step. And the second step is to explore. You may have this idea in your head of what you want to do, or what you think you should do, or what your parents thought that you should do. And it's probably something that you're like really, really, really attached to. And it's difficult when you're so attached to an idea, it's difficult to think about anything else. So when I was in high school, I loved race cars. And I wanted to work around race cars because I thought it would be so much fun. That was my reasoning with my dad, you know, because my dad told me the story. You have to hate your job. Like, that's just part of life. You hate your job so that you get money so that you can do the things that you want to do. And I was like, no, that doesn't work for me. I want to love my job. And my dad's like, that's never going to happen. And so I'm like, okay, well, since you said I can't do it, then I'm definitely going to do it. I'm going to do it twice and take pictures. So I loved race cars, but I didn't want to be like a race car driver because I hate driving. But I was like, I want to do something around race cars. So like, what can I do? And I always loved math and algebra when I was in college. And so my dad's like, well, you can be an engineer. And I'm like, oh, cool. Because that has math. And, you know, you have to have a college degree. And that's like a prestigious thing to do. And you could make quite a bit of money. So yeah, that sounds great. I'll do that. And so I started engineering school in college. And then it got really, really difficult. And I was like, I don't know if this is the thing. You know, I don't know. And my mom was like, well, you know, a lot of girls really aren't engineers, and that's going to be really difficult. And what are you going to do when it gets difficult? And I'm like, I don't know. It's really difficult. And she's like, well, you should major in business because business is so much better. And you would be really good at business. And I was like, no, I really want to be an engineer. And so what happened was I was so attached to being an engineer that I couldn't let it go. So I ended up changing my major to criminal justice because it wasn't engineering, but it wasn't business. And then I graduated with that degree. And then I decided to go back to school and finish my engineering degree because I was going to be an engineer. I couldn't see anything else. Even though I didn't really like it, I was so attached to the idea. And once I really even decided that I didn't want to do it, I couldn't tell anybody because I was so embarrassed. Here I'd been telling them at that point for 6 or 8 years that I was going to be an engineer. And I'd been bragging about it and telling them how much smarter that I was than them. It was my way of proving my worth and proving how smart I was by saying, well, of course I'm smart. I'm an engineer. Like, you can't question how smart I am. I'm going to be an engineer. Like, I'm studying physics, but not regular physics, like physics for mathematicians and engineers. I'm taking thermodynamics and regular dynamics. Like, you've never done this. Of course I'm smart. I'm way smarter than you are. And so it was like, after that, I'm like, I don't want to tell people that I can't do it, or that I don't want to do it anymore. Like, that would be me saying that I'm not that smart. That would be me saying that I made a mistake. And then I would have to go back to, I don't know what I want to do. And so I struggled with that for a couple of years. Just because I didn't want to admit that that wasn't the thing for me. Back then, I really never even thought about being a writer because, number one, I was so attached to being an engineer. And I was also terrible at English. I'm still terrible at English. When I was in grade school, I was terrible at spelling. When I was in high school, I homeschooled through part of high school, and my mom made me take spelling. It's only required for 8 years, or it used to be required for 8 years. But my mom was like, no, you have to take spelling for all the 12 years because you were terrible at spelling. And I'm like, well, if I'm terrible for 8 years, what makes you think I'm going to be better like 4 more years? You know, I think if you're terrible, you're just terrible. It really doesn't get a whole lot better, which is true. It's never gotten better. I still am terrible at spelling. The technology has gotten better, though. So that's been good for me. But I was so attached to that idea that I'm going to be an engineer, that I couldn't see anything else. So when you're looking at finding your purpose, you have to let go of the expectations. But then the second thing is you have to explore other ideas. Think about what you like to do. Don't just think about, like people tell you, think about what are you good at? If somebody asked me that, I would be like, well, I'm good at math. That's why I want to be an engineer. I never would have said I'm good at spelling or I'm good at English. I'm terrible at those things, right? So of course, if you're terrible, then why would you want to be a writer? But that's actually what I love doing more than I've loved anything else. And it doesn't matter that I'm terrible at it because, you can be terrible at something and still have a lot of joy in it and it still be one of the best things that you've ever done. And you get better, right? And sometimes the things that you're terrible at, there's a reason. When I was thinking about writing a blog, I wanted it to be perfect, right? And so I was stressing about, is there like a way that I can have somebody proofread my sentences and make sure that everything's like perfect? And then I started thinking about the blogs that I like to read. And one of them that I love to read that was my favorite was written by Glennon Doyle. Her blog is called Momastery. And I was reading it back in like 2015 when she talked about depression and eating disorders and anxiety a lot. And when I was reading her blog one time, I was looking at it going, she doesn't have complete sentences and she makes up words. So why am I so worried about spelling? Why am I so worried about if all of my sentences are like grammatically perfect? The blog that I like is somebody who literally makes up words. And that's what makes it so great. That's why I love reading what she writes, because it's not perfect. So I was like, well, if that's what I like, then surely other people are going to like that too. And maybe I can inspire somebody to start writing too. So, I mean, there might be a reason that the thing that you like to do, it doesn't have to be the thing that you're good at. It's important to explore other things. Think about what's missing. Is there a way that you can change something? What does the world need? It helps to detach yourself from it, right? So if you think about what can I contribute to the world? Then you're like, I don't know. I don't really have a lot that I can contribute, right? But if you think about it from a different perspective, like, what does the world need? Then all of a sudden you have all these ideas. Like, oh, I can tell you 100 different ways that you can fix the world. I can tell you how you can fix politics. I can tell you how you can fix the news. I can tell you how you can fix the way that the roads are. I can tell you how to fix the grocery store. I mean, like, there are 1,000 different things that I could tell you that the world needs. So when you turn it around that way, rather than saying, what am I good at? There are tons of other questions, other ways that you can think about that, where you could come up with something that you can do that you might actually really love.
All right, I love this talk, but let's take a short break for a minute. I got a direct message the other day, one that was very familiar to me because I get it from a lot of people. But this particular one says, I love your content and I wish that there was more of it. I'm so inspired by you and I love how relatable you are. How do I get more? This is from Susan, who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, Susan, I have some good news for you. I'm starting an insiders group for you and for anyone listening who wants more content. It's called the INFJ Woman Insiders. With this group, you'll learn more about your INFJ personality and step into your highest and best self. You'll get at least 2 videos every single week from me, full of inspiration, guidance, and support. You'll also get 2 live videos a month where I show up to answer your questions and give you support and coaching. I'm also including exclusive access to behind the scenes of what's going on in my business and my life each and every week. If you want me there with you like a cheerleader and a coach, you'll want to become an insider. The INFJ Woman Insiders group is only $9.99 per month, and it's month to month, so you can cancel anytime. I'm here to support you in rising to your highest and best self. Are you ready? Let's go! Go to infjwoman.com/insider to sign up today. And if you sign up by the end of this week, I'm going to include access to my workshop called How to Go From Overthinking to Doing, absolutely free. Go to infjwoman.com/insider to sign up now.
One of the reasons that I decided to write a blog about INFJs was because I knew that I wanted to write. And I had started writing like 6 or 8 blogs. And none of them I hadn't stuck with any of them, right? But I found out my personality type, and I had been reading up on it for a couple of years. And it kind of frustrated me a lot because some of the information out there about INFJs is contradictory. And I could tell that some of it was written by an INFJ, and some of it was written based on a theory of how an INFJ should act. And that's why it was contradictory, because some of it was lived experience and some of it was, oh, I think this is how it should go. And there was only like 3 or 4 websites or blogs that had information. And I was like, well, I want to know more than what's there. And are there other INFJs, and how do you connect with those people? And, it seems like there's something missing here. Maybe there could be a better resource for INFJs. Maybe there could be like one place that was like, hey, here's all the things that you need to know. And then that was where I had this idea. I was like, oh, maybe I could write a blog about INFJs because I want to write. And it seems like there's this place that's missing something. Maybe I could write about that. So that's how I came up with the idea, and that's like where it all started. I knew that figuring out my personality type had helped me so much. So I thought, well, maybe there's like one other person out there that could benefit from this information. I had no idea that there would be 60,000 people or more, which it's amazing. It's so touching and so humbling to know that there are so many people out there who are like me and who benefit from my blog and my social media. Everything that I share is stuff that's helped me. So it's nice to know that I'm not the only one, for sure. So that's the second thing, is really to explore different things, because you never know like what's going to be the thing. I was talking when we first started about a free workbook that I have. The workbook has some exercises where you can go through different time periods of your life. I have this cough that just won't go away. The workbook has some exercises. One of them is that you go through the last 10 years of your life and you write down all the things that were incredibly painful. Not physically painful, but emotionally painful. So I'm 35 right now, so if I were doing it, I would go from like 25 to 35 and just make a list of all the things over the last 10 years that were really, really painful. And then do that for the previous 10 years too, so like from 15 to 25. And when you look at in those time frames, I bet that you'll see some things that are really surprising for you. When I did the exercise, I found that I was fired from 2 jobs and laid off from 3 jobs in the space of like 10 years. And I was kind of shocked because me getting fired wasn't my fault either time. But I didn't realize like I had had so much insecurity over my job. I knew that there was a lot, but you don't really sit around and think about that every single day. And then there were some other things that just kind of piled up quite a bit. And, you know, you don't think about it, right? Until you sit down and you start writing each one of them down and you're like, I need another piece of paper because there's so many things that were like really painful. And then you go through and you look at each one of those things and you write down like what was the most painful part. And this exercise will help you to narrow down what is it like, how can you help the world, right? How can you help other people? You've gone through some really painful things in your life, but you've made it through those things. You've figured out the best way to get through those things. One of the most painful things for me was being misunderstood. Feeling like nobody out there understood me. Feeling like I didn't really even understand myself. Which was another reason that I settled on personality types, because I wanted to help other people understand themselves. That was a problem that I had. There was really big emotional pain for me. And I knew that I had gotten through that. And I knew there was a lot of information that I had that I could help other people get through the same situation. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is my purpose. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do right now. And the next thing, which is always the hardest step, a lot of people focus on what's my purpose, right? But that's not really even the hardest step. People get stuck there because they can't make a decision. But the hardest thing is taking action, right? Because it's easy to look through your life and say, okay, these are like, there's 2 or 3 things that were really, really painful for me. I've lost quite a few jobs. I've been in desperate situations for money. I've suffered a lot of rejection in my life. I've suffered a lot of like misunderstanding in my life too. So you come up with like 3 or 4 things and you're like, that was really rough. I don't know how I got through that. And you think about, okay, what's the thing that seems the most interesting to me? Well, all right, I can help people with their personality types. There's a lot of information that I have that I can share. And then you get stuck there because you don't know what to do next. Or you feel like, well, who am I? Who am I to tell people about their personality types? I don't know everything about personality types. So how am I supposed to help people? Because I'm not an expert. I don't have any credentials. Yeah, I spent 10 years in college, but none of that applies to this. So then you start thinking about like, okay, I need training. I need to like go back to school. But you don't really need to go back to school because if you're like me, you've already spent almost $100,000 on school and it didn't really help that much, right? And you solved your own problems without any of the school. You didn't even use anything that you learned in school to solve your own problems. So why would you need to go back to school? Maybe the thing that you need to do is to just start. If it's writing a blog that you want to do, you need to just start writing the blog. Even if you're terrible at spelling, even if you don't know how to set up a website, even if you're not really even entirely sure on how to post a new post. One of the great things that I found, you can learn so much on YouTube. I mean, so many people. I've joined a lot of Facebook groups too. And what's funny to me is that people will type something in a Facebook group, like ask a question. And I'm like, if you just want to type that into Google, you could have found the answer. If you would have typed it into YouTube, you could have found the answer, right? If you really wanted the answer, you wouldn't have to talk to like 100 people about it. You could just go ask Google or YouTube and they would tell you the answer. If you want to know how to set up a WordPress site, well, WordPress will tell you how to set it up. But if you really get stuck, YouTube will tell you how to set it up. There are like millions of people who tell you, like, who make videos. That's what they do. That's how they make money, by telling you how to set up your WordPress site. So the reason that a lot of people get stuck is imposter syndrome. They feel like, who am I? You know, who am I to do this? What if somebody tells me, one of my greatest fears when I started writing my blog, what if somebody says, who are you to write this? You're such a fraud. Like, you're a terrible person. Who are you to even say this? You don't know what you're talking about. Thankfully, that didn't happen to me early on. We are, almost 3 years? I started in December of 2018, so almost 3 years into this. And it wasn't until the last 3 or 4 months that people started saying that kind of stuff. And they're like teenagers who, you know, are just angry at life and have decided to pick on somebody, and they decided to pick on me. They create these whole Instagram accounts that are like hate accounts. And the whole thing is like, they're creating an account just to hate my account. And it's kind of funny. I mean, it's like, really, you don't have anything better to do with your time? There isn't some way that you could help people? I guess not. But, the thing is, though, that was my biggest fear. And I made it through that. And it was bad, you know, it's not fun dealing with people like that. But it wasn't like life-threatening, you know? It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought that it was. It wasn't something that I couldn't make it through. We always build that kind of stuff up in our mind, like this is the worst thing and it will never be okay. If somebody calls me a fraud, I won't be able to make it, and that'll just be like the end of everything. But what does it even matter if they call you a fraud? If somebody walking down the street calls you a fraud, would you quit your whole life because of that? Like, you don't even know that person. Who is that person? They don't know you. How did they know that you're a fraud? How did they know that you're not like the expert? They don't know. They just think that they know. It's one of the terrible things about social media, though, is that people get really brave when they're behind a keyboard and they don't have to answer for the stuff that they say. They don't have to say it to your face. They're just saying it, they're just typing it on their phone, you know? And they also know that you're limited in the replies that you can make, because it's a business, right? And you want to have a certain professional type of front. And you know the first thing that they're going to do is screenshot stuff. So you can't just type back some snarky reply like you really want to say. You just kind of have to let it go. It's just how it is. All right. So that's what I have for chapter 11, I guess it was, on how to find your purpose. Like I said, I have a free guide that's called Find Your Purpose Workbook. If you're interested in getting this guide, you can go to infjwoman.com/findyourpurpose, and it's totally free. There are several exercises in there. The one that I explained, it's explained a lot better and in the workbook. And I think there are 2 or 3 other exercises as well. So if that one doesn't resonate with you, if you don't find the something that works for you with that one, then there are a couple of other things that you can go with there too. So again, you can find it at infjwoman.com/findyourpurpose. Okay, I see that there's a couple of questions. How do you fix politics? Well, I think that depends on the person that you ask. Most of my opinions about fixing politics are just leave me alone. You know, I think that if politicians would just leave people alone, the world would be a lot better. How do you react when someone argues with you aggressively? I get so stressed I can't even hear what I'm saying. My mind goes a little blank even though I have so much to say. I feel like I'm being attacked. I do not tend to argue with people in person. I have a lot of anxiety about confrontation in person. Mostly because the people that I end up arguing with are either my family or the people that I work with. And like I said earlier, I've had issues with jobs. So I know what it feels like to be fired. I know what it feels like to be laid off. And I want to avoid that at all costs. I want to avoid that because it's not fun being unemployed for a year and a half. It's not fun. So arguing with people in person, I think the last time that I did that was probably with my sister when I was young. And I wasn't really afraid of her, like, at all. So, but I didn't like arguing with her even then. It makes sense to me that your mind would go blank because you get so angry about stuff that you have certain responses to those types of situations. Your body perceives that as a threat. Your mind and your body work together and they perceive it as a threat, right? So a lot of people have what they call fight or flight response, but there's another response that is less talked about, that's freeze. And so maybe that's your response, is freezing, not being able to say anything, not being able to even think about anything. That happens to me sometimes. I'm usually very witty, very sarcastic. And so when somebody says something nasty to me or something mean, then I'll usually say something really snarky back. But if I'm angry or caught off guard, then I can't think about anything. I kind of get the same way. And so then I spend like hours afterwards, sometimes days, replaying the argument again in my head and like, oh, I should have said this. Oh, this would have been so much better. Why didn't I say that? Why didn't I think about that? And then usually what happens is I'll think about it for days and then I'll get stuck in a similar situation later on. And then I know exactly what to say because I was like, oh, I thought about this. I know what happens when somebody's nasty to me. This is what I say because I thought about that. And this is what I'm going to say. I don't necessarily suggest that because I get myself in a lot of trouble with that sometimes. I've been accused of being extremely direct. And that's why a lot of people get angry with me, I think, is because they can't handle honesty and they can't handle me being direct. They want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want to hear the truth. And so when I get direct, then they get mean. And then they call me mean. And I'm like, that's not true. I'm not mean. I'm honest. There's a difference. Are you quite reserved in public settings? Yes. I don't hardly talk to anybody. I don't even talk to my neighbors. I don't like my neighbors. Mainly just because they want to talk to me. And I don't like people. I really don't. I know that seems really weird because I do live videos and I do workshops and all this kind of stuff. I do YouTube videos and stuff, but I don't really, the majority of people, I wish they would just leave me alone. I don't want people like, there's somebody new that moved into my apartment building and they keep taking my Amazon packages from, there's like a box out front that's for Amazon packages, and they keep moving them to my front door and knocking on my door, and I never answer it. But I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, why is that so difficult? I don't want to do the neighborly small talk. I don't care about your family history. I don't want to know about your kids or your cat. I don't want to come over and have a glass of wine. I don't want to do that. That's probably one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of friends, but but that's okay with me because like I just don't like most people. And when you have a lot of friends too, you have to do all the small talk stuff with a lot of people, and it's like I don't want to do that. And most people don't want to talk about like the meaning of life. They don't want to talk about the latest book that they've read. I've been reading Gabby Bernstein's Super Attractor book, and none of my friends want to talk about it. I'm like, how do you not know who Gabby Bernstein is? Like, seriously. So maybe I should just ask them. It's like, I want to give people a questionnaire first. Like, hey, do you want to knock on my door just to chit chat? Do you know who Gabby Bernstein is? Like, do you want to talk about the meaning of life? Will you agree to never talk about politics? Can you agree to not talk about the news? You know, there's like certain things that I have to know before I'm going to agree to talk to you. It sounds really weird, but I think that's like how you get when you get older. It's like, I'm just tired of everybody's BS. You know, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to pretend that I'm nice when, I mean, I can be nice, but I don't want to do that to everybody. Found out I'm INFJ at 44. Now I feel like I have Benjamin Button syndrome. I'm doing things backwards. Doing things backwards, like, I've always felt like I was an old soul. Like, I was more responsible, more, I hate to say it because it kind of sounds like arrogant, but I always felt like I was more intelligent than the people around me. Especially when I was younger. I didn't like high school kids when I was in high school. I thought that people were so superficial. And my older sister was like obsessed with dating and guys. And she used to read all these books about dating. And I was like, and so like she would make me read them because she wanted to talk about them. And I had zero boundaries back then. So I would just read them to get her to stop. And every single one of them was like trash. And I'm like, I can't believe you read this stuff. Like, why would you want to date if it's this complicated? Why would you want to trick somebody into marrying you? Like, that just doesn't even make any sense to me. Why, if you're tricking them, then they don't really like you, and you may not even like them, so what's the point of that? Like, I don't understand this whole thing. It's stupid. And my sister was super frustrated with me because obviously I didn't get it. But I feel like I've kind of gone backwards a little bit because I've always sort of had that attitude, like I'm sort of exhausted by people, you know? And I was even like that when I was in school. I homeschooled for like 3 or 4 years when I was in grade school. And I love that because I didn't have to do all the talking to people stuff. But then I realized once I got to college that I had missed out on some of the social skills that people learn. And so I had to like relearn or, you know, just learn how to socialize. And obviously I haven't learned it very well because I just got done telling you how much I hate people. So, there's still some of that that's like, meh, I would just rather not. But there are some other things. I don't know that I would call it a regret, but there's a lot of stuff in my life that I didn't do that other people did. A lot of, like, both of my sisters, a lot of my friends have these stories about how they went to these parties and they got drunk, and you know, some of them are wild stories. Some of them are like, I can't believe you lived through that type of stories. And I don't really have a lot of those stories. I've only been brave enough probably since like 2017. I guess there were a couple of things. I mean, I went to Europe when I was in college, but I was volunteering for a religious nonprofit organization. So it wasn't like, you know, something super crazy. But there aren't a lot of those times for me where I was like drunk. I never drank. I never did drugs. So, and I don't think I've ever went to a party before. I've never even been to a bar. So my life is pretty boring. And sometimes I have like regrets around that, thinking of maybe I missed something. But then it's like, well, I probably have more brain cells than people who spent years and years and years being drunk. So I guess it's okay. What do you do when you really want to say your opinion about the subject that people are talking about, but it's like your mouth is blocked? That's really difficult. I usually try to lean on my intuition with that. And a lot of times I kind of like work it out in my head that it's like, okay, if there is an opportunity before the subject changes, then I'll say something. And sometimes it's a good thing, and other times it's like, ooh, I don't know if I should have said that. It wasn't too long ago, a few years ago, I was in a meeting, and it was like all of the important people in the company, and they're all guys in the room except for me. And I'm like the communications manager, I was at this company that I used to work for. And they're all like, okay, we need some marketing ideas. And I had this really great idea, and I know it's something that they're not doing. And they're all talking, and of course my boss is talking over me. And I'm like, kind of almost like telling myself, don't say anything. But then also at the same time, like working out exactly what I'm going to say. And so I had sort of made that deal in my head that like, okay, if there's like a natural pause in the conversation and they haven't moved on to something else, then I'll say something. So there's a natural pause, and like the highest guy in the company says, okay, well, does anybody else have any ideas? And several of the people looked at me, because I know they're thinking like, you're the communications manager and you haven't said anything. And I was like, okay, opportunity, here we go. And I was like nervous, and my voice is shaking, and I'm trying like to steady my voice. Like when you know that people are looking at you, and so you're like really aware of your face, and you're trying to make it seem like you're not nervous, even though you're like terrified. And it's difficult because it's like, okay, remember how to talk. Like, how to talk, and you're kind of like trying to talk and telling yourself like, you know how to talk. Why is this so difficult? You know how to put sentences together. Like, what's the problem? That was kind of like the whole situation. And I knew exactly what I was going to say because I had worked it out in my head. I'd been working it out for like an hour while they were discussing everything else. And I knew that I knew a lot about the subject and I could speak intelligently about it. It's just that when people are looking at you and it's important, then all of a sudden you like forget how to be intelligent, and you forget how to talk, and you don't remember how to put sentences together. And you start stuttering and you never stutter, I think a lot of that comes with, you get over that, you learn how to deal with it when you're in that position more often. If you're very rarely in that position, then you don't have a lot of practice doing it. It's kind of like, the same thing happens to me when I do live videos. I don't do live videos a lot. So when I get out of practice doing them, I get nervous and weird. And I stutter when I talk, and I can't put sentences together, and it's super stressful. And that's not how I usually am. I usually don't have to think about what I say. But when you get nervous, then it's a lot worse. But it gets better the more that you do it, the more you put yourself in that situation. You just think about it a lot more when you're nervous. I was doing one live video one time, and somebody in the comments was like, you sound really nervous. Maybe you should take a breath. And I was like, yeah, I am really nervous. Actually, I have an anxiety disorder and I don't like doing live videos. But hey, thanks for pointing out that I sound super nervous. That helps a lot.
As a reminder, you can check out all of the videos in this series for free at infjwoman.com/bookvideos. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you subscribe and leave me a review as well. It helps other people to find us. I'll see you again next week. So you just watched that video, and I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you want some more amazing information about INFJs, check out these videos right now. I'll see you there.